There was a time when this earth was nothing but silence and darkness. No sound, no light, no life. Then slowly, over billions of years, life took its first hesitant steps on this planet. And that life began with something so incredibly small that no human eye could ever see it directly. A tiny cell, a microscopic bundle of chemical instructions, carrying within itself the entire blueprint of a living creature. This is where the story of the bat begins. The bat, known to science as a member of the order Chiroptera, is the only mammal on this planet that has achieved true powered flight. Not gliding, not drifting on warm air currents, but genuinely flapping its muscular and remarkably flexible wings to cut through the air with precision and purpose. There are over 1,400 known species of bats, distributed across nearly every corner of the Earth, from dense tropical rainforests to arid desert caves, from small Pacific islands to the edges of the Arctic Circle. They make up roughly 20% of all mammal species on Earth, making them the second largest order of mammals after rodents. And yet, despite their extraordinary abundance and their ancient evolutionary history stretching back over 50 million years, most people know remarkably little about how these creatures actually reproduce, how they bring new life into the world, and how that process is shaped by millions of years of biological refinement. To understand bat reproduction, you first have to understand the bat body itself, because everything about how bats reproduce is deeply connected to the physical and physiological demands of being a flying mammal. Flight is enormously expensive from an energy standpoint. A bat in full flight burns calories at an extraordinary rate. The muscles powering those wings, which in some species make up as much as a quarter of the animal's entire body weight, demand a continuous and massive supply of oxygen and glucose. This energy cost means that a female bat carrying a developing baby inside her body faces a unique and serious biological challenge. She must continue flying, hunting, navigating, and surviving, all while nurturing new life growing within her. This tension between the demands of flight and the demands of reproduction has shaped bat biology in some of the most fascinating ways found anywhere in the animal kingdom. Most bat species are what scientists call seasonal breeders, meaning they do not reproduce throughout the year, but instead synchronize their mating and birth cycles with specific environmental conditions. In temperate regions of the world, where winters are cold and insect populations collapse during the colder months, bats have evolved a reproductive strategy that is almost unique among mammals. They mate in autumn, just before or during the period when they enter hibernation. The male bats produce sperm and mate with females as temperatures drop and food becomes scarce. But here is where the biology becomes truly extraordinary. The female bat does not immediately allow those sperm to fertilize her eggs. Instead, she stores the sperm alive inside her reproductive tract, in specialized regions of the uterus, throughout the entire winter hibernation period. The sperm remain viable, metabolically active but dormant, surviving for months inside the female's body, while both the bat and the stored sperm are in a state of drastically reduced physiological activity. This biological phenomenon is called delayed fertilization, and it is one of the most remarkable reproductive adaptations found in any mammal on Earth. When spring arrives and temperatures begin to rise again, the female bat emerges from hibernation. Her body senses the environmental cues, lengthening days and warming temperatures, and in response, her reproductive system reactivates. Ovulation occurs, the stored sperm are released from their holding sites, and fertilization finally takes place, sometimes 4 to 5 months after mating actually occurred. This extraordinary delay means that birth happens in late spring or early summer, precisely when insect populations are exploding and food is most abundant, giving the newborn bat the best possible chance of survival. But delayed fertilization is not the only reproductive trick that bats have evolved. Some species practice delayed implantation, where fertilization does occur shortly after mating, but the resulting embryo, called a blastocyst, does not implant into the wall of the uterus immediately. Instead, it floats freely in the uterine cavity for weeks or even months before implantation occurs, and development begins in earnest. Other species practice delayed development, where implantation happens normally, but the embryo's growth rate slows dramatically during unfavorable environmental conditions and then accelerates again when conditions improve. These three strategies, delayed fertilization, delayed implantation, and delayed development, represent an incredible toolkit of reproductive flexibility that allows different bat species to precisely time births to coincide with optimal environmental conditions, regardless of when mating occurred. The mating behavior of bats is itself a world of astonishing complexity and variety. In many temperate bat species, males establish territories in autumn and engage in elaborate vocal displays to attract females. Bats are of course famous for their use of echolocation, the biological sonar system that allows them to navigate and hunt in complete darkness by emitting high-frequency sound pulses and interpreting the returning echoes. But what many people do not know is that bats also use sound for communication, including during courtship. Male bats of many species produce complex songs, sequences of clicks, chirps, and tonal calls that are quite different from their echolocation signals. These songs can be remarkably elaborate, with some species producing calls that change in frequency, rhythm, and structure over the course of several minutes. Research has shown that females actively evaluate these songs and show preferences for certain males based on the complexity and quality of their vocalizations, suggesting that bat song functions similarly to bird song as a signal of genetic quality and fitness. In tropical bat species, which do not need to deal with harsh winters and therefore do not hibernate, mating systems can be quite different. Many tropical bats form breeding colonies where males compete directly for access to groups of females. In some species, a single dominant male will defend a harem of females against rival males, mating exclusively with his group throughout the breeding season. In other species, males and females come together only briefly for mating and then separate, with females forming their own exclusive nursery colonies to raise their young entirely without male involvement. Some bat species are thought to be largely monogamous, with paired males and females roosting together, and the male playing some role in territory defense, though direct male parental care beyond this is rare in bats compared to some other mammals. The pregnancy of a bat, once fertilization and implantation have occurred, is a period of intense physiological investment for the female. Bat pregnancies last anywhere from 40 days in some of the smaller species to over 8 months in the larger fruit bats. During this time, the female must continue her normal activities of nightly foraging and navigating, while her body allocates significant resources to the developing fetus. The growing baby bat, called a pup, develops inside the female's uterus, connected to her by a placenta, just as human babies do. Bats are placental mammals, meaning the placenta transfers oxygen and nutrients from the mother's bloodstream directly to the developing pup throughout gestation. The placenta of bats is actually remarkably similar in structure to the human placenta, a reflection of the shared mammalian ancestry that connects bats and humans, despite their dramatically different lifestyles. One of the most striking aspects of bat reproduction is the typical litter size. The vast majority of bat species give birth to a single pup per reproductive cycle. This is unusual in the mammal world, where many small animals produce large litters to compensate for high mortality rates. The reason bats have evolved this single offspring strategy is directly related to the demands of flight. A female bat carrying multiple fetuses would be significantly heavier and more aerodynamically compromised, reducing her ability to hunt effectively and potentially endangering both herself and her offspring. By investing everything into a single, large, well-developed pup, bats maximize the survival probability of each individual offspring, even though total reproductive output per year is low. When birth finally arrives, it is a physically demanding and remarkable process. Female bats give birth while hanging upside down from their roost, which is the normal resting position for most bat species. The pup is born head first in most species, dropping briefly before the mother catches it in her tail membrane or wing membranes. Newborn bats are surprisingly large relative to their mothers, sometimes representing as much as 25 to 30% of the mother's body weight at birth. Imagine a human mother giving birth to a baby that weighed nearly a quarter of her own body weight, and you begin to appreciate the extraordinary physical demand that bat birth represents. Newborn bat pups are born in a relatively advanced state of development compared to many other mammals. Their eyes open within hours of birth in many species. They are born with a full coat of fine hair, or are nearly hairless depending on the species. Their small, clawed feet, which will eventually allow them to hang effortlessly for hours, are functional from birth, and the pup immediately grips its mother or the roost surface. However, despite this relatively advanced physical state, newborn bats are completely dependent on their mothers for warmth, protection, and nutrition. Like all mammals, bat pups are nourished entirely by their mother's milk in the early weeks of life. Mother bats have 2 nipples located in the chest region, and the pup nurses frequently, growing at a remarkable rate during the early weeks after birth. The growth rate of bat pups is one of the fastest recorded among mammals relative to their final adult size. Some species of small insectivorous bats reach adult body size within 3 to 4 weeks of birth, a pace of development that is extraordinary by any measure. During the first weeks of life, the pup clings to its mother continuously, even accompanying her on nightly foraging flights. This adds significant weight and aerodynamic drag to the mother, making her hunting less efficient, but it keeps the pup warm and protected during the vulnerable early period. As the pup grows heavier and the cost of carrying it becomes too great, mothers begin leaving their pups behind in the roost while they forage at night. In species that form large nursery colonies, hundreds or even thousands of pups may be left clustered together in a warm roost while their mothers hunt outside. The question of how a mother bat finds her own specific pup among potentially thousands of identical-looking young animals clustered together in a dark cave has fascinated scientists for decades. The answer lies in a combination of spatial memory, scent recognition, and vocal recognition that is remarkably sophisticated. When a mother returns from foraging, she navigates to the approximate area of the roost where she left her pup using spatial memory. She then calls out with a specific mother-pup contact call, and her pup responds with its own unique call. Each bat pup has an individually distinctive vocalization that its mother learns to recognize within the first days after birth, much as human parents quickly learn to recognize the specific cry of their own infant. Scent also plays a role, with mothers using olfactory cues to confirm the identity of a pup once they have narrowed the search using sound. The precision of this recognition system is remarkable, allowing mothers to locate and nurse their own specific offspring with high accuracy, even in roosts containing millions of individuals. The period of maternal care in bats is extended relative to many other small mammals. While some rodents of similar body size wean their young within 2 to 3 weeks, bat pups typically nurse for 4 to 8 weeks, and in some larger species, considerably longer. This extended period of maternal investment is another reflection of the low reproductive rate strategy that bats have evolved, where each individual offspring receives substantial resources and care to maximize its probability of surviving to adulthood. During the later stages of the nursing period, pups begin practicing flight, making short, fluttering attempts from the roost while gradually building the muscle strength and coordination needed for full-powered flight. The transition from dependence to independence is gradual, with mothers continuing to nurse pups even after they have begun making their first solo foraging attempts. Sexual maturity in bats arrives at different ages depending on the species, but many small bat species reach reproductive maturity within their first year of life, sometimes mating in the autumn of the very year they were born. Larger species may take 2 to 3 years to reach full sexual maturity. Once mature, bats are surprisingly long-lived animals for their size. While a mouse of similar body weight might live only 1 or 2 years in the wild, many bat species routinely live for 15 to 30 years, and some individuals have been documented living for over 40 years in the wild. This extraordinary longevity relative to body size has made bats a subject of intense scientific interest, from researchers studying aging and longevity, as bats appear to have evolved unusual mechanisms for resisting cellular aging and the accumulation of DNA damage over time. The combination of low reproductive rate, extended maternal care, and long lifespan means that bat populations are inherently slow to recover from disturbance. A female bat producing 1 pup per year for 20 years might raise 15 or 16 surviving offspring over her entire lifetime if conditions are good. This is vastly fewer offspring than a mouse or rat of similar body size would produce in a single year. It means that when bat populations are disrupted by habitat destruction, disease, or human disturbance of roost sites, the populations recover only very slowly, even when the threats are removed. White nose syndrome, a devastating fungal disease that has killed millions of bats across North America since it was first detected in 2006, illustrates this vulnerability with tragic clarity. Entire cave colonies that once held hundreds of thousands of bats have been reduced to dozens of individuals. And even with active conservation efforts and disease management, recovery is measured in decades rather than years because of the inherently slow reproductive pace of these animals. Understanding bat reproduction is therefore not merely an academic exercise in animal biology. It is essential knowledge for anyone concerned with the conservation of these extraordinary animals and the ecological services they provide. Bats consume billions of insects every night across the planet, providing natural pest control worth billions of dollars annually to agriculture. Fruit bats pollinate hundreds of plant species and disperse seeds across vast distances, maintaining the diversity and structure of tropical forests. Losing bats from an ecosystem does not merely leave an empty space where bats used to be. It unravels a web of ecological relationships that took millions of years to evolve, with consequences that ripple outward through entire ecosystems in ways that are still not fully understood. Every bat pup that survives to adulthood, every successful pregnancy, every mother that finds her offspring in a crowded, dark cave and nurses it through to independence, is a small victory in an ancient biological story that began over 50 million years ago, and that the natural world cannot afford to lose.